My name is Jeff Morgan. I'm here at CPAC 2023 with Tia Bess. Tia, it was so great to meet you.
It was great to meet you as well.
So I know you're here with Moms for Liberty. Tell us a little bit about Moms for Liberty, and then I'm going to ask you another question after that.
Okay, yes, sir. Well, Moms for Liberty was actually founded by two mothers who saw behind the educational curtain when they ran for school board. So basically what we do is we believe in transparency in education, we believe in parental rights, and we fight for that for our kids.
And when we talk about parental rights, that whole issue of parental rights, you need both parents involved, don't you?
Well, yes, you do. I mean, listen, we've all heard the saying, mother knows best. Yes, mother does know best. However, we need each other to work together. You do need your father in the household.
And you have a story that you can share about that, both from personal experience and how you have helped to break the generational curse. Feel free to share that with others.
Yes, sir. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read something to you. So my son had an IEP meeting. He's special needs. He's on the autism spectrum. And I want to share something with everyone at home. We had a parent-teacher conference. My son's father and I were no longer together, but we're able to co-parent for the love of our child. And if I love my son, then by proxy, I still have to show care for his father, but I'm going to read this.
Sure.
Amir is a wonderful student who enjoys school, learning, and challenges. He is working above grade level in all areas at this time. We removed occupational therapy and language therapy services. Social behavior goals to improve his peer relationships and interactions. Now here's the main part I want everyone to listen to. With the continued guidance of his parents and teachers, he will continue to soar. Present at that meeting was myself and his father. We were able to come together and co-parent for what's best for our child.
And I think that's very important because you said that your son is on the autism spectrum. And I think what's important is that sometimes when you have children with special needs, they need both parents more. And yet often in our legislature, in our states, we've almost put programs and policies in place that kicks a parent out of a child's life. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think that in order to break generational curses, we have to put our ego aside. Yes, you might not get along with a person that you were with in the past, but you can fake it till you make it for the sake of that child. I mean, I have not said anything negative about my son's father in his presence. Why? Because I have respect for my son to make his own opinion, to make his own judgment without my biased opinion.
And I think growing up, didn't you have a little bit of a situation where with an absent father, perhaps, maybe not willingly absent, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, my father's, he served in Korea, and he was a vet, and he had his own problems. And my parents went their separate ways when I was 8 years old, and I really missed him. I really just wanted to spend time with him. He stayed in Virginia. We moved down to Florida. There wasn't any phone calls, any cards, any letters on my birthday, and you feel forgotten. And it puts a void in your heart, especially as a young lady. And I know that a lot of women out there, we're angry and we're hurt with what they did to us. But don't let your kids suffer for the relationship that you and your ex have been through. It happened in my own household with my mom. My mom was so angry and she couldn't get past the hurt of my father that she just banned us from seeing him. And it left a void in my life.
That is a sad story, but it's a tragic story at the same time. And again, unfortunately, too often in our state legislatures, they say, well, we have to find out who the better parent is, and the better parent gets to have the kids more. But what I hear you saying is that both parents are important, vital, and necessary.
Both parents are important. Like I tell people, you don't have to get along. I'm not saying you have to be best friends, but you have to start somewhere. Why? Because that child, you're setting your son or daughter up for their future relationship. If you can't handle diversity and conflict and communicate openly without having the silent treatment, you're teaching your kids that it's okay to isolate their partners, to use their children as pawns, to keep them away. And for me, the relationship between my children are more important than any dollar sign. You cannot put a dollar sign on love and acceptance and comfort. You just can't.
When you talk about this, I kind of hear what you're saying is that, I think what I hear you saying, so you can clarify this for me, but if people go through a divorce, at the very minimum, there ought to be the foundational starting point of 50-50 equal shared parenting, and possibly, from what I hear you saying, you and your ex-husband maybe even have more than that because you attend things together when it's special.
Well, yes, it's interesting because today, of course, it's CPAC, and I'm not there. I'm not at my son's basketball game. However, this morning I was able to watch him play basketball and make a basket all the way from Florida. And his father, he's doing an amazing job. But if you don't have any models and examples in front of you on how to be a father, you're not going to deliver. So that's why I think that male role models are important. And if you're not in a safe situation or it was an abusive situation, there's a lot of healing that has to be done first. It doesn't mean it's not attainable. It's possible, but it's going to take work on both parts.
And I think that as well with that, one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit as well is the idea of false accusations. So if you're in a position where you may not like your ex-husband, you may not like your ex-wife, do not make false accusations, and especially do not make these things to the police. I know that they don't get prosecuted. I know oftentimes they are rewarded. But what are your thoughts about this idea of making a false allegation? Because I'm going to get back at him. I'm going to get back at her. What are your thoughts about that?
The only person that it hurts is the child. At the end of the day, that's who it's hurting. And I've actually had it in both ways where I've had a father who was so upset with his ex-wife that he called Department of Children and Families on her because she has a new partner. And that's where it all goes back to learning how to be the bigger person. Your kids are watching you. When you're long gone, they're going to remember how you handle every single relationship. That is important. They're not going to stay kids forever. They're going to be productive members in society, and they're going to use you as their baseline example for a relationship. You cannot use your children as a weapon. There's no excuse for it.
They're going to be productive members of society if they have access to both parents, generally speaking. And you know as well as I do, even though there's issues where there's times when the mother gets forcefully kicked out of the child's life, it happens more to men. And what we've been saying is that when it happens, when state policy is such that a parent is almost mandated to be an absent parent, looked upon either as a paycheck or a purse, a wallet or a purse, that is an act of violence that our state is now committing against the children too.
Yes, well, I think it's important as well that if you're going to have visitation in custody, you also need to provide some type of counseling. There needs to be mandated counseling, and not just having a mediator, but how to heal your trauma. I mean, everyone's situation is different, whether it was, an abusive situation, whether it was sexual abuse. We have to get past our hurt in order to help. Yes, hurt people, but healed people heal people, and safe people keep others safe.
Absolutely, 100%. So let me ask a couple of other questions here too. The grandparents. Are grandparents involved? Because often when you erase a parent, grandparents get kicked out of the children's lives. And I think we know, especially in the Black community, from what I've heard, there's the verb called grandparenting. Is that correct?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about the whole thing with grandparents and how important they are as well, and that important that both sets of grandparents, to the degree that they can be, are involved in the children's lives.
Well, it takes a village to raise a child. And now, I'm not politically correct, so I'm just going to be honest with you. For a few years, I actually dropped my son off at my mother's house because at the time we weren't able to communicate without being hurt. So even at the end of the day, my son still saw his father. Even though I wasn't able to speak to you, I said, you can go pick him up from my mama's house until I'm able to grow and develop to be able to speak to you. But every time I turn around, my son would have a car seat at my mom's house, have food at my mom's house. And, if sometimes your grandparents are the grandparents are the mediators, and they help you with their wisdom, and it's just an all-around community.
And one of the things grandparents should not be doing, I understand sometimes grandparents are hurt too, but they also should not be
belittling and bashing that child's father or mother for that case. You shouldn't do that. Because then your child feels like, I can't speak about my dad, I can't be happy regarding my father. I want to tell you a case of a family that I know. And it really is the saddest story, where because of the mother and the father could not get along, the last time they spoke was when their child was born. It took them 23 years to say something else to each other, and that was when they lost their son. They did not hug their son, they did not hug each other or even speak to each other, have any type of relationship until the day they had to pull their son's body out.
That is so sad.
Don't let it be too late. Don't wait too long. And he really suffered because he wasn't able to talk about any side of the family. When you go with your dad, you can't talk about your mom and her side of the family. So they were alienated.
I've seen alienation, exactly. I've seen situations where you might have a child who's been in the hospital, maybe on in a very serious condition, and the other parent will not let the other parent know because they want to maybe make the stepdad or the stepmom the new daddy or the new mommy, and that is terrible.
It's funny that you say that, and I go back to myself as a child. I hated my mom's boyfriends. I'm going to be real, and I'm going to keep it real with you. I said, I'm not going to call you dad because you're not my dad. You did not give birth to me. You had no process, no part of that process. And I was angry and raging out. And that's what's happened to a lot of our youth. They're angry. They feel like someone's trying to take the place of their actual father. No one will take the place of your father.
Right. And I think you make another good, important point here. At least it's a lead into this point that I want to mention. We talk about parents, good parents and everything, but we don't talk about the good enough parent. You don't have to be a perfect mom. You don't have to be a perfect dad. We don't want to see bad moms and bad dads, but the importance of a father or a mother, the natural mother or father, is so important to the children. All they have to be is good enough. And if they're good enough, they should be there.
Actually, it's interesting because my mother-in-law, she always says, some dad is better than no dad. Some mom is better than no mom. Whether you're on drugs, whether you're, really going through some hardship in your life, sit down and buy your child an ice cream. Spending time with them, even if it's 5 minutes, is better than nothing. And I mean, there isn't anything that I wouldn't do to have one more moment with my dad. And the last time I spoke to him, I was 14. He came to my school and he said, "Baby girl, I love you so much, but I'm leaving. Your mom and I are not getting back together. I'm sorry to tell you, and I'll be in touch." And that was the last time, and he brought me an ice cream and we sat in the car for a minute, and that's my last memory. Don't let your last memory of your father be arguing. Don't do that. Don't do it to yourself.
Right. Boy, that's very powerful. Very emotional, I can tell as well. So you're with Moms for Liberty.
Yes.
And any final words you want to tell the people that are watching? And if anybody wants to say, Tia, you know what you said really spoke to me. I mean, we've been through some of this stuff. It's been happening in our community. It's been happening all over the place. Can you help me? Can you provide some resource? Can I even call you perhaps and just say, hey, tell me how you work through this? If anybody wanted to get in contact with you, would you be willing to talk with them or email response to them or anything like that?
Yes, actually I would. So I do also want to say this about Moms for Liberty. We have over 275 chapters, over 100,000 members, moms on the ground. Whether you're a single mom, even if you're a grandparent, aunt, even if you're a dad, we just want our kids to be the best version of ourselves with our parental involvement. We're very involved in parental rights, and whether that's the father or the mother, but we have to work together for our kids. And if anyone wants to reach out to me if they have any questions, I am available. I'm on Instagram, and you can actually reach through momsforliberty.org, send an email, and I'll be able to get in contact with you.
Tia, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you so much for coming down. And we were here at CPAC. We're in front of this one booth. We're representing the booth called Nuking the Nuclear Family. And we do understand that at times the family does split up. It's best, of course, if families can stay together. And parents should try to work things out. Sometimes it doesn't happen.
Well, I think a lot of young men, they don't know how to be a dad. How can you be someone when you don't know how to be that way? If your father's in jail, if he's drinking, if he's running the streets, or if your papa was a Rolling Stone like my dad, how do you learn how to be better? You have to have more examples, models, whether that's in the church, sporting events, at your school. You have to find a positive male role model for your child.
And for churches, I think this is very important too. That sometimes, because of the way states work things out, fathers need to have a place, or mothers need to have a place to interact with their children. Churches, you should have this ministry available. You should be encouraging both parents to be actively involved. I believe that it's not just that the church should have, hey, this is the time for single moms to go out. I understand single moms are stressed. A lot of them are doing heroic jobs. Some single moms are single moms because they don't want daddy around, that's another.
My mom was a single mom, but she was an amazing mom.
Yeah.
My grandma was an alcoholic. She was extremely abusive to her kids. However, your history does not define who you are. You have to break those generational curses and heal that trauma, and it starts with you inside. Yeah. That is it.
Breaking the generational curses. And churches, you better have a very important role in this. For our legislature, you've got to take note of this, because sometimes it's your policies, sometimes what are being permitted to take place in your courts that you've established, that you've made statutes for, that are causing these generational curses to take place.
And the courts make you choose. I remember going to court for a custody hearing. They asked me, who do you want to live with, your mom or your dad? Why should I have to choose between my parents? I love them both. And it puts that division in your heart for your parents.
Right. They cause trauma and they cause long-term difficulties for children. But Tia, it was such a pleasure to meet with you. Such a pleasure to talk with you. Thank you so much. Any final words?
Let's work on our family. That's all I can say.
Thank you so much, Tia. Great to see you. Thank you. God bless you.